Hey guys, today we're going to be drawing mixed media faces, and I'm going to be giving you 7 tips or points that you can follow to help you get started. We are going to be having a fun, relaxing time, but also instructional time. So get your coffee, tea, wine, whatever, and let's get started. So the way I want to do this video is I want to give you some tips using this portrait that I painted a long time ago as an example. And then we're going to actually draw a couple of things. And this is going to be a longer video, and it's just going to be kind of relaxed, hopefully, but also instructional. This will be one that's included in the Jane Davenport giveaway. Here are a few things to keep in mind when you're painting, when you're drawing mixed media figures. I've seen many people who, well, okay, actually, for drawing any face. This is going to be for drawing any face. This is not really a whimsical style face. We're going to get into that, but let's just start with face basics. So I have not taken any of Jane Davenport's classes, and so I'm not actually using some of hers from what I can see in these books here, but she uses a lot of standard portrait drawing rules or tips, tricks, whatever you want to say. And so we will be doing some just basic general rules when painting, drawing faces, but we're also going to be using some things that Jane Davenport specifically uses, or that I think works for mixed media faces. I have seen lots of people post faces and whatever, and you know, they ask for what's wrong with this, and they can't figure out what it is that's wrong with it. So that is the first thing. And really, I'm just calling it, so number 1 is develop your critical thinking. So lots of times we think of, when we hear the word critical, we're thinking something negative, and it doesn't always have to be negative. Critical thinking is very helpful. So if you want to improve, if you draw a face and you're like, oh, I'm so happy I drew a face, that's good for me, whatever. But if you're drawing a face, and I kind of went into this when I used the acrylic stamps, because that's kind of a starting point. You may want to watch that video. You don't necessarily have to watch it first, but it's using the acrylic stamps that I just showed you, and how that can help you to learn how to draw a face. But it's kind of, I kind of mentioned the same concept, is if you want to improve, then you need to develop your critical thinking. So you need to figure out, where can you improve? I know something's wrong with this, but what is wrong with it? I don't know. And that is usually when people are saying, help me with this drawing, it's usually they need to be told, here's where your problem is, and then they can fix it. They can actually fix it. So the first and the most important thing is to figure out what is wrong with, and when I say wrong, remember this is art, and I'm not saying wrong as in you've drawn a face wrong, because I don't really think that you can, you know, everyone has different styles. When I say wrong, I kind of don't mean it in that term. I mean it more as in, what is the problem with this? What is not sitting right? What is not, what's going on here that doesn't look right? And so wrong might be a little bit harsh term, but for the sake of this video and for the sake of my mental stability in explaining things, I'm just going to say wrong. Okay, so you need to be able to figure out what is wrong, and that is probably the most important step and the first step. As an example, we can draw a face. Let me get my sketchbook here. We can draw a face. So I'm just going to start with, and I'm just going to try to do this really relaxed so that, you know, none of you get too intimidated. We're going to go over these basic rules. But basically you put a line halfway down the oval and halfway across the oval. We think of eyes up here. They're not, they're here. And we'll get more into this in a second, but I just want to, for the sake of this, what I'm trying to get across to you right now. So this is for the whole concept of figuring out what you are seeing that you don't like. What's not sitting right with you. Okay, so we're just going to draw some lips here. We're just doing this really loosely. Okay, so here's, I'm not trying to draw an amazing face here. I'm just trying to draw the basic things here. Okay, so here is a face, okay? I'm gonna, actually, I probably shouldn't have done that way because I wanted to show you something. I don't always start out by drawing that, but I am going to for the sake of this. So let's say we have a face here, okay? I'm gonna try to draw it wrong so I can show you here. Okay, so we have a face, there's a girl here, la-di-da. Someone's like, oh, the eyes are off for me. What? There's something off. Well, this is what's off. We have this space here and we have a little space here. Okay, so this is just an example. So lots of times when you're thinking, oh, something, the eyes don't look right, or the mouth doesn't look right, or the whatever, it can be the surrounding areas. So you're assuming, because the eyes are a major point of the face, you're assuming it's the eyes, but it might not be the eyes. It might be that you drew her face way out here and she looks like she's swollen on that side of the face, okay? And say, okay, so something's wrong with her lips. Well, it's not her lips, it's her chin. It needs to be even around here. So look at the surroundings of the face. So when you're thinking, so the main things of the face are the nose, the lips, the mouth, and the eyes. But sometimes you're thinking, oh, the eyes look wrong. It's not the eyes, it's the eyebrows, or it's something else, okay? Or the nose is drawn over here, and you're not figuring out that, oh, it's not lined up. And it sounds very simple, like when I talk about it, it sounds like, okay, well, that's obvious, like as if I'm not going to notice that. But when you're drawing and you're focusing so much on just drawing a face you really want to just be proud of, you don't see that. You really don't see that. And it can take practice. It takes time to be able to just be able to look at a thing and say, that's what's wrong. There, I've got it. And sometimes you'll need to go away from it and come back, and all of a sudden, oh, I can see it now. When you focus so much on this area, or this goes for any painting, you don't see it until you walk away or until you look at it from a different perspective. So I often tell people, take a picture with your phone when I teach classes, and people are like, I don't know if I like it, I'm not sure, I don't know if I'm done. I tell them to take a picture with their phone because they can't really go away and come back, right? Because it's a class. Then they look at their phone and it's a different perspective. It's like looking at it reverse in a mirror or something, which is a practice many artists do. And they all of a sudden are like, oh, this looks really good. I can't believe I painted this. Or they'll say, oh yeah, okay, I can see this little part here. That's what's missing. I need some more yellow right there, or I need something here, or whatever, okay? So that kind of goes along with the critical thinking. And a lot of these points I'm going over go into, they kind of apply to a couple different ones that I'm saying. So this is develop your critical thinking and see, okay, is it the eyes or is it something else that might be wrong, okay? Now, what do we actually see? The second thing that I want you to think about is what do we actually see versus what we think we see. So let's using this face again. Let's try to clean it up a little bit so it's not so crazy. I have seen so many people draw faces. Now, I am not claiming to be an expert. Please don't think I'm claiming to be an expert, because I have seen so many people draw faces on YouTube and I'm like, they are amazing. And, you know, I'm not at that point. Especially mixed media faces, I'm still actually trying to figure it out. Okay. So, noses. Noses are my nemesis. Noses, nemesis, okay? Painting noses is like, I don't even know what to tell you. But I'm going to use the nose as an example for this concept of paint or draw what you actually see versus what you think you see. So lots of times when people are starting, they think, okay, I'm going to draw a nose, do, and there's the nose. Okay, but that is not what we see. We don't see the outline of a nose. What we're seeing is shadows and valleys and peaks in the nose, especially the nose. We see that in all features of the face, but especially in the nose. The nose doesn't really have an outline. It has, the only kind of anything that's distinct is the nostrils. Okay, the nostrils, and the tip maybe a little bit, and that's about it. Like, you can maybe see a little bit here, around here, and now my nose is going to look ridiculous because I'm whatever, but it's very nondescript, the nose. What you're seeing is the shadows, so you need to learn how to draw the shadows of the nose and not the outline of the nose. So if you look at the eyes or the lips, there is more of an outline. The lips protrude, so you use shading to do that, and you do that with the eyes as well, because they kind of sit inside of the face. But you know, there's more of an outline of the eyes, like you can see, okay, but the nose doesn't really have that. So what we need to do is we need to do shading. I'm going to use to emphasize the nose, not draw a distinct outline. Okay, does that make sense? And then if you want to show that this kind of comes in here a little bit, it's just a very light shading. So there's no actual outline. There's no hard outline there. So let's look at this one. I'm going to zoom in even more. Okay. So this is a good example. I have no outline here. Okay, and I have some little nose for the nostril and a little faded line of a tip and the side of the nostril. But there's no outline of the bridge. And so many people, when they first start drawing, they do a complete hard outline. But that doesn't exist. That is not what we're actually seeing. That's what we think we're seeing. That's not what we're actually seeing, okay? So I hope you kind of understand that whole concept. And I'm applying it to the nose, but it can be applied to really anything you draw, not even just portraits, okay? And it's not an easy concept. I mean, I still have to concentrate and think, okay, I'm drawing this, it's not turning out. What am I doing? And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is, I'm drawing what I assume I'm seeing, but not what I'm actually seeing, okay? I already kind of went into the other one, but I wanted to make a special point of it. This kind of went along with the develop your critical thinking. When assessing problem areas, look at the surrounding spaces. I really wanted to make that its own kind of point. So that's number 3. When assessing problem areas, look at the surrounding areas, because it might not be the areas you think it is. Just like there's something wrong with the eyes. It's not the eyes, it's the eyebrows. It might be the eyes, it might be, but you have to develop your critical thinking and figure out what it is, okay? So I'm not going to go into that because it's covered in step 1 in my first little tip, and I just wanted to give it its own little thing. So the next thing I want to talk about are the eyes, and I'm doing their own little category here. So eyes, many people draw eyes differently. There's all sorts of ways to draw eyes, and it just depends on what your style is. We need to cover the iris with part of the eye, the top eyelid there is covering the top of the iris, okay? If we don't do that, this is what we have. Let's just draw some eyelashes because I need some personality in there. Okay. She looks very surprised. She looks maybe not even well. So we need to cover the eye and then they look more natural and more relaxed. Now you can play around with this. You can cover this even more and give them like a really, you know, this is where you can figure out what personality they have, what kind of look you want to give them. So to go back to here, just zoom in. I just did that here. You can see I've covered that. Okay, it really helps to just have more of a natural looking eye if you cover part of the iris and you don't have the full circle showing. Okay, and you can go further than that and cover part of the pupil as well. And of course, we're going to leave a white spot for the pupil, but that's, you know, whatever. Okay, so her eyes don't look like they're closed. She doesn't look like she's sleepy, right? This one maybe looks like they're sleepy because I brought it down a little bit more, but that's just a natural look, okay? So let's just do kind of an eye, because I don't even have the bottom there. Just going to see if I can do kind of the same style. It looks more wide open. And I mean, if you're doing a surprised portrait, then this is what you want to do, okay? So that's what I'm going to say about the eyes. You can play around with that, give them more personality. Let's look through Jane's book here, just to see here. So you can see she's covered that. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention was when you're painting or shading or coloring, whatever, you do want to put a little bit of a shadow over the top of that iris and the pupil, because there is a shadow that comes over our eyes. We don't consciously see it, but it really helps to put it in. You can see I have it in there. I could actually stand to put it in there a little bit more. It just helps our brain to see it as more of a realistic, natural looking eye. And her girls aren't even realistic, and she does it because it just adds a lot of personality. So here, look, the eyes are covered over. The eyes are there, and these eyes, I would say they're big eyes, right? Most of Jane Davenport's eyes that she draws are big eyes, but she still covers the iris. And sometimes you might be able to see more of the pupil than others. This one, the eyes are more somber. They're more, they come down. You can tell they're a little bit more closed. So this girl looks a lot more peaceful. Here we go. Here's one, really big eyes again, but the iris is covered. The pupil, I don't think is. It's hard to see. It's a really small picture. Here, big eyes, the iris is covered. Okay, I don't know if I've ever seen her draw one where the irises aren't covered. The top of the iris isn't covered. And they're always shaded over a little bit. Okay, so that is a very much beginner mistake when people first draw the eyes, because, again, they think, okay, I'm going to draw the iris, and I'm going to draw the pupil. And it's like, well, no, we don't see the whole iris, actually, right? But we think, okay, here's the iris, and we're not drawing what we actually see. Okay, so the eyes, that was number 4. The mouth. I want to go into the mouth a little bit. So, with Jane's mouth, she kind of starts by doing this little curve, and then she really does a swoop, because it really helps to add to the whimsy, the innocence. She really likes the innocence. If you read through her Beautiful Faces book, you can see that. So this is not necessarily a realistic looking mouth, but that's okay. It works for either whimsical or realistic. And then we'll just kind of do a middle line. This isn't how I normally draw my lips, but I'm going to do it for this. Okay, and then we'll just draw a little thing like that, okay? It's a pretty basic, not exciting mouth, but whatever. If we want to add a little bit of personality or just some kind of expression in there, all we need to do, we don't even need to change the shape of this. We just need to make her mouth open up a little more, and all we do is make this middle line thicker, and it just makes her look like she's opening her mouth a little bit, or her lips naturally open like that. And then, I mean, we can shade this to make this look a little bit more. And actually, I was going to draw this with pencil crayon, I forgot. I'm just going to shade this. And one thing I will add, pretty sure Jane probably says this as well, is when you're coloring in or painting in the lips, do a curved kind of, whatever that adds to the volume of the lips. And we're not trying to do, we want volume. In these kinds of drawings, we want volume. We want to see some nice luscious lips, okay? So you can even do that. So do you see how it's just easy to just add a little bit in there? I'm not going to go into smiles right now, mostly because I don't actually draw smiles that often, and I don't know if I've seen too many. There must be some that she has open, I'm sure she does, but most of these drawings are, now that I think about it, the lips are closed. And you can do a lot of different things with closed lips, put some personality in there. But one thing I do want to say about smiles is they are not like this. Okay? Those are clown smiles. Those are not necessarily actual smiles. So let's just take a look at this and see if we can just kind of change this around. We're just going to bring this up a little bit. And remember, with smiles, the whole face changes. The eyes change, the little shadows, there might be some creases in the face, there probably will be. And so I'm going to just bring this up a little bit, and this is going to flatten out a little bit. Our face doesn't necessarily go like that when we smile, okay? Think about it. Look at your smile. It actually just flattens out, right? More. So your lips flatten out more. So already, I'm flattening out that top lip because it's stretched more, and this gets darker, and you're going to also get into teeth and whatever. So the only thing I'm going to say about smiles right now is this is not how we draw smiles, because that's not how we smile. We smile and our lips thin out as we smile. And if we're laughing, then our lips thin out and they go even, you know, they go wider, or they go farther apart, but they don't go in a curve. Okay, so that's the mouth, space between the lips, 5. 6 is another thing I just want to mention for anybody who is a beginner. Sometimes you might be scared because you're not sure if, okay, like I'm gonna try to draw this face. I really, really like this face. I want to try to draw this face. Go ahead and try to draw this face. You're not doing anything wrong. It's still your work. If you were to copy this, print it out, and then be like, I drew this face, or crop this and put this on Instagram and say, look at this face I drew, that's copying. But if you actually draw it yourself, you're not copying, and chances are it's not going to look like this anyways. You're using this as inspiration, but unless you're a very good portrait painter, drawer, realistic, you're not going to be able to copy someone's work exactly anyways. The only way you can really copy is by, I mean, okay, I'm generalizing. This is for faces, I'm saying, is if you were to print this out or take a picture of it and say that you did it. You can, there's definitely, I'm not going to get into it, but with artwork and stuff, you can copy, you know, someone draws a picture of whatever, and you can copy those same elements, and that's not what you want to do. You want to add your own, you want to change it enough so that it's not like they must be copying this. It's fine to say, I wonder if they got their inspiration from this, because it looks similar, but it's different, so I wonder if they were, that's fine. But that's getting into more than what I wanted to, which is not surprising. But another thing that can help you is put tracing paper over this and just get used to your the movement of your hands and the movement. Tracing can be so helpful. If you're not selling it, and I'm a licensed artist, so I'm actually with a licensing agency, and I've worked with intellectual property lawyers as my agent and whatever. So I'm, you know, I do know a little bit about what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm an expert. I'm not an intellectual copyright lawyer, and there's a lot of people and a lot of sources out there that can give you a lot more information about this than I can. But tracing this and then using this to help you and just get used to drawing a face. If you're not selling that and whatever, then, and making money from it and making prints from it, then it's fine. Go ahead and you can make your own thing. Like you could trace this face and then go and make your whole piece differently. Just use this as inspiration and then take it away. Once you've got the main things, take it away and color it yourself, shade it yourself, and do your own thing with it. It's your artwork. Your, you know, and I mean, it is nice and it's appreciated, and I would recommend that you do it and say inspired by Jane Davenport or inspired by whatever. That is nice, because you never want to, as an artist, you don't want to see someone being like, here, and it's obvious that they used yours to help them achieve whatever the piece that they are posting, the image that they're posting. So if you go on my Instagram, you'll see I've done some watercolors, and I always try to include the person that it was inspired. It might turn out different, or it might look like, oh yeah, she definitely is trying to do the same. She's trying to paint the same thing, just as an exercise. And that's fine. That's very helpful, okay? Sorry, that is probably, some of you probably didn't care too much about that because you have no interest in selling or even maybe showing your work, so you don't even care. But don't feel like it's cheating if you're tracing or if you're, you know, trying to paint this exact face. It's not cheating, okay? You're still doing it. But yes, go ahead and say, this was inspired. If you're showing it to on social media or whatever, this was inspired by blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to say, and this is just kind of obvious, but I do want to include it, and I've kind of already touched on it, is shading is important. Shading goes back to what we were talking about with the nose, what we're talking about with the lips. You add a little white spot, and with the eyes over here, we shade that in. So shading is important, even when you're not doing a realistic face. So here's a whimsical face. Look at all the shading she does, and she talks a lot about this. Those of you who can afford to take her class, I definitely recommend taking her class. I am sure it's amazing, and I definitely am going to when I get enough money to. So look at this. So this piece is not shaded too much, but she has shading in here because we need to show that the eyes go back, that the eyelids kind of, there's a socket there. And we need to show that the lips are kind of coming out. So you can see she's got a little bit of shading around the nose. She's got a little bit around the head here, but this isn't even very much. So generally the faces that, or the surfaces, the spaces that go into the face, that go farther in, are darker. And the ones that come out, you want to leave white spaces for. Take a look at this one. So I am emphasizing the fold here. Sorry. I'm emphasizing the fold here. So I put this darker color in here, and I wanted to emphasize that this kind of curves around and goes back. So this is a little bit lighter here, and then this is darker, and then here we have this darker, and this is obviously going right in, and then right here is a good example. You can definitely get the feeling like her lips are coming out, right? So shading is important. It's not as hard as you would think. Do not be intimidated by it. Even sometimes if you're not sure what you're doing, it can still be helpful to do some shading, just because you need something on there to keep it from looking flat. So before I even just added a little bit of color right here, this looked flat, but even just adding this, just all of a sudden we have a nose there. We have some depth in her face. It's got more of a 3D feeling. So, you know, I could put some of that in there. I could shade some here. I'm not the best with pencil crayons, I'm just going to tell you right now. I'm going to really just put a darker line in there. I find it easier for pencil crayons, and I guess this is probably just because I'm so used to working with a brush because I've not worked with pencil crayons since I was a kid. So since I used to color in little coloring pages like this. So when I first got these magic wands from Jane Davenport, that's what I started to do. And I quickly realized that that just did not feel normal, and feels so much better to just go like this and do that. If I'm drawing, if I'm sketching, then I'll hold it like this. But that's just, I don't know. I find it so much easier to do this. And this would be similar to, I guess, how a pastel artist would work, or pastel, whatever you want to say. And I haven't worked with pastels, like I haven't ever painted with pastels. So look at that already. We've got, even though the features aren't in the right place, like her nose is far away from her mouth, but whatever. Okay, so I hope that helps you with starting on mixed media faces, and really any faces in general. It applies to both of them. And so I want to paint, I don't know how long this video is getting. Depending on how long this video is, I may put this in a part 1 and part 2 because I don't want this to get too long. So let's put this away. So yes, surprise, surprise, this video did get a little bit long, and I really just want to keep it to around half an hour. So I am actually going to put part 2 of this video in the link up on the right there, and you can join me there. It will be me painting more of a little bit of a detailed face, and I will also be painting it. So I will see you there.